Hello there. If you're watching, we're about to get started. Just going to make sure that I've got everything set up here. Testing. Testing. I think we're live. All right. Let's see if we've got anyone who's joined yet. If you're here, please leave a comment in the chat and especially let us know what you'd like to accomplish today. We're here to answer your questions as usual. Now, like we discussed last time, this is our second office hours. Again, we're here to discuss your questions. Make sure you don't include any sensitive information, though. If you're working for a company right now or any organization and you're running into problems, try to keep your response very generic. Remember, these are going to be posted online, and so you don't want to post something that's sensitive to your company. Maybe you can take your problem and just keep it really high level. Again, something you would be okay with the public being aware of that level. Don't include any sensitive information. But if you're running into any kind of troubleshooting situation, whether it's through Power BI, Python, SAS, R, even SQL especially, and Excel, whatever analytics tool you're using, I'll do my best to try to help you through that. And if you're facing a new visualization or analysis or data science project or anything data related and you're not sure how to approach it, that's a really good use case for this time as well. So again, keep it high level. Don't include that sensitive information, but share that. And if you're an aspiring analyst, or maybe you're a practicing analyst right now, and you're running into a situation where you don't know where to go next with your career, you're not sure where to take it, you're maybe running into a difficult situation, even a leadership situation that you're struggling with. Again, don't include specific details. Keep it very high level, things that you would be okay with the public knowing. But go ahead and ask those questions at a high level, and I'll do my best to try to give you some advice. That's what this time is here for. Let's see, do we have any questions today? And what's neat about this too is if we don't have any questions, I will bring a prepared topic. I've got one today. I figured we could talk about analytics maturity transformation today. And in particular, a survey that I have on our website, Value Driven Analytics, that'll ask you about 34 questions about how your organization does analytics. And once you take that quiz, within a few days, you will get a PDF that gives you your level of analytics maturity split out by a few different areas. So you know where you're doing well and you know where you're not doing so well. It's very simple. It's a rating on a scale of 1 to 3. And then on top of that, it doesn't just give you a rating and leave you there. It gives you specific recommendations on how you can improve in each area as well. So it's a great resource. All you do is take a 34-question quiz, probably take, there's only 3 options for each question. Probably take you 10 minutes or so, and then you get this free PDF. It's a great value. It's an infinite value because it's free. It costs 10 minutes of your time. But I figured we could kind of walk through that as well, and I can just talk about the state of analytics across different organizations through walking through that quiz. And again, maybe it'll inspire you to take the quiz. And of course, you can take those recommendations and try to apply them yourself. But if you do need help with those, implementing those recommendations, that's what value-driven analytics is here for, to help you advance in analytics maturity. We have experience doing this, and we'd love to help however we can. And we've got a 7-step roadmap for helping you transition to the next level of analytics maturity, proven to work at multiple organizations. So we'd love to lead your organization through that process as well. Boy, I could talk about that topic for a while, and hopefully we'll get to talk about that today, but I want to start by answering your questions. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat. We'll just test out the chat today, and I'll ask, do you have any questions? There we go. And we'll also do a quick poll. You know, a lot of analysts are very passionate about the tools that they use. Some are big fans of Tableau, some Power BI, some Click and Spotfire and all the other analytics visualization tools out there as well. But Power BI and Tableau are certainly the most popular by far. And if you've looked at Google Trends, I've written some articles about this, done some videos about this. Man, Power BI has the momentum. There are a lot of organizations that are switching from Tableau to Power BI. Why? Well, one, Power BI has really ramped up their functionality. They have added so many new features. For a while, they were releasing them on a monthly basis. I'm not sure if they're still doing it on a monthly basis, but still very frequently. So it's become a really flexible tool. Everyone has their own opinion on which one's easier to use or has more functionality or better functionality. I personally find Power BI to be a very efficient way to create dashboards, especially in the sense that you can create your visualizations directly on the dashboard. You don't have to create a worksheet and then drag them into a dashboard like you often do with Tableau. So I'm a big fan of that from an efficiency perspective. Now, I will say, Tableau makes your parameters, field parameters, really flexible and easy to use. Power BI added that functionality maybe a year or two ago. It generally is right there with what makes it somewhat easy to create those now, and pretty flexible. But there's still a few use cases where Tableau has a little more flexibility when it comes to field parameters. And what I really mean by field parameters is the ability to set a visualization up where you have let's say a chart that has a field that's going to have your metric broken out by that field, and the ability to change that field dynamically. So, for instance, if you wanted to have a line chart and you wanted to have sales broken out by month, but also have the ability for a user to break it down by quarter or year, maybe week or day, the ability to let's say you have those 5 or 6 fields in your data table, being able to just set that up as a filter where they can choose out of a slicer filter what they want sales to be broken down by, whether it's month or quarter or year, so forth. Just being able to choose that, and then automatically your graph updates. So it's just one example of a use case for field parameters. So now you can do that in both platforms, but some really, really complex use cases. Sometimes Tableau has a little more flexibility there. But overall, my preference is Power BI from a usability perspective. Again, everyone will have their own. But then let's talk about the cost side as well. In general, Power BI tends to be less expensive, and especially when your organization has a Microsoft E5 license, Power BI is actually included in that. So if your organization, maybe for all the other apps that the E5 license includes, is already paying for an E5 Microsoft license, you're already paying for that tool. If you were to go with another dashboarding tool, that's just additional cost on top of that. So you better really like Tableau or another dashboard platform if you have an E5 license and you're going to use another one and pay for another one when you already have access to Power BI, right? So I think a lot of organizations are considering switching to Power BI for those reasons. And I have a whole article on this on our blog on value-driven analytics, so feel free to check that out, and a few videos on it as well. Don't know how we got on that topic, but let's answer your question. So if you have a question, please leave it in the chat. I'd love to answer it here. That's what this is all about. All right, it looks like we might have a couple people on the call. Maybe you heard me babbling on about dashboarding tools. Hope I didn't offend any Tableau users. That's how you grow, though. You got to try both to figure out which one's best for you, and ultimately, you probably want to land on one for your organization. You know, having having stakeholders switch between Tableau and Power BI constantly, probably not going to be the best user experience. You want one platform where they can go to get their numbers, their analytics. Hey, it looks like we have a few people on the call now. So again, don't include any sensitive information in the chat, but if you have questions, anything, want to know how you're to take your career to the next level, if you're facing a particular project, again, don't include sensitive details, but you know, this is what it's here for. Just, you know, if you have a high level scenario, I'd be happy to walk through how I would approach that analysis. There, a lot of times there's a few robust ways to address it, but whatever you do, you want to approach it from a robust perspective. You know, you want to control for all the necessary factors. You don't want it to be too simple. In some cases, you can make your analysis too complex too. So you just want it to be robust. You want it to take the business challenge you've been given, the business scenario, craft an approach that truly addresses it. That's what our job is as analysts. And if you do that consistently, you're going to be a successful analyst. We can talk about skills, analytical skills that are important for a role, if you have any that you'd like to talk about. And if you're facing any technical problems right now, again, Power BI, Python, SQL, have those tools ready to go, even Excel. I have a few data sets that we can illustrate these concepts with. So if you have a question on any of these, please feel free to leave a question in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. Let's just do a quick, you know, again, I'm just waiting for your questions here. But if you don't have any, eventually I'll just go ahead and start my analytics maturity transformation quiz topic that I've prepared. I'll do start a poll here, and we'll ask, as we were just talking about interactive visualization, what is your favorite interactive dashboard tool? Let's take a quiz. What's your favorite interactive dashboarding tool? I've seen a lot of these quizzes on LinkedIn lately, and the answer is very consistent, and it also lines up with what we see in Google Trends. If you go to that website and you look at Power BI versus Tableau, it's very clear which tool has the momentum. And yeah, we'll see what our audience thinks today. We'll just go between those, Power BI and Tableau. We're starting the poll. Okay, which one is your favorite? Is it Power BI or is it Tableau? Let's see what you think. All right, so far, okay, it's not going to let me vote. That's okay. All right, go ahead and vote if you have an opinion on it. All right, I think you know my answer based on the previous discussion. So what we'll do here is I'm going to highlight a little bit of what I was talking about earlier. I'm going to go to Google Trends. This is a great resource for just doing high-level research. Now it has some limitations, but I'll just start over to show you how to use this. I like to use this when I'm doing research on analytics tools, just to research, how popular different tools are relative to each other. Let's remove those two. I'm not sharing my screen now, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. There we go. How about that? So now you should be seeing my browser, and we're on Google trends.google.com. So what you can do from here is I'm going to search for Power BI to look at that trend over time. This is the United States. I'm going all the way back, as far back as it'll go. If you go to custom time range, yeah, I think that's the furthest back it'll go. Yeah, 2004 to present. There we go. And then you can filter down by categories there, but image search, I think we'll do web search, although YouTube search, maybe we'll look at YouTube search this time. That could be interesting. Let's look at the YouTube searches for Power BI over time. 2008, no one was really searching for that. Interesting. So of course it launched around, I think, 2015 or so. They've got some notes here about the data collection system changing. So when you look at these, you'll notice it's not giving us search volume, it's giving us a number between 0 and 100, where 100 ends up being the highest level for all the search terms and across this entire time period. 100 would be the highest level of search volume, 0 would be the lowest. So it doesn't really tell you how many searches that are being done for Power BI. But what we can do is if we add another term, you'll get a relative sense of how often Power BI is being searched for versus Tableau. And here it just shows you how relative to other time periods it's been searched for over time. So apparently there's a big spike here in July 2019, the most popular time people are searching for Power BI, I guess. It's about that level even now. For some reason there was a little bit of a spike there, although you've got these changes in data collection too. So I think that should be consistent across search terms. So if we add another search term here, let's search for Tableau, we should be able to get a good relative difference between the two search terms over time. Okay, yeah, so you can see, even, let's see, we're looking at 2008 to present. So it's updated to 2008 to present. I guess maybe that's related to YouTube collection. Yeah, Tableau, much more searched for a long time. It's been around, I think, since around maybe 2004 or so. It's been around for a while. But watch what happens here. 2018, still more searches for Tableau. And then it looks like around 2020, Power BI starts to be more, maybe really around, 2020, but really around 2021, starts to be more popular from a YouTube search perspective. Now let's just look at web searches overall. And this is in the United States specifically. Now we are able to go back to 2004. Again, Tableau, been around for a long time. It was the clear leader for so long. Where you really start to see the red line representing Tableau and the blue line representing Power BI, now just as general web searches, Google web searches. Watch this, right around, Tableau is still a little more popular. Looks like, yep. It's May 2023. Power BI finally has more Google searches than Tableau. And let's see, you can look at January. Let's look at December, the most recently completed. Yep, still, an index value of 56 versus 51. It doesn't tell us how many searches were being done, but it does tell us relative that there were generally more Power BI searches in the United States on Google than Tableau. So there's a real momentum shift happening here. I joked in maybe one of my posts that, May 2023, where these lines crossed, if Microsoft is tracking it, and I certainly would be if I were them, just probably having a party on May 2023. We finally had more web searches, again, this is in the United States, than Tableau. Let's just see what it looks like worldwide. That's for curiosity. Oh. Now this is interesting, right? You can definitely see Power BI still closing in, but when you look at it worldwide, there seems to still be more Tableau searches. So Tableau's penetrated that worldwide market. And I can kind of get a sense for where I guess they're more popular here. Well, yeah, Russia, it looks like there's 60% Power BI searches. Brazil, oh wow, 81%. And then 57 here. But really, it'd be interesting maybe to filter this down a little bit more to the recent time period, maybe over the last year, when Power BI overall, well, in the United States, has had more searches. So let's boil this down to, past 12 months. Because again, if we look at the U.S. only, United States, we see that, again, especially since maybe we filtered it even more to since May 2023, but we've seen Power BI in blue here kind of generally overtake the search volume for Tableau. It's very, very close, and you can see overall for this time period it is higher. So but when we look at this worldwide, we still see that there's more searches for Tableau. So my question is, what country is driving this? So again, United States, 52% Power BI. Really, we're seeing that a lot of places. Wow, Brazil really likes Power BI, 92%. Fascinating, and just other South America countries as well, like Argentina. Now Canada is 60% Tableau. That's interesting. All right, we'll see. I wonder if it allows me to drill in here if I just click on that. Yeah, it does. And yes, we see that they're still fans of Tableau. Maybe I'll look at since 2004 just to see how the momentum has changed. Okay, so in Canada, Power BI is definitely ramping up, but just Tableau's kind of stayed a little bit higher there. Very interesting. Let's go back to worldwide. Of course, when you're doing an analysis like this, you need to take into account how much volume does Canada versus US versus these other countries take up. The map here just shows the size of the countries. It kind of appears like Europe is driving a lot of the Tableau preference. That is really interesting. In France, 99% of searches are for Tableau relative to Power BI. Very interesting. And this is based on, let's confirm, okay, this is 2004 to present. Let's go back to the last year. See if that changes anything. Worldwide, we're going to drill in. Okay, now it's 96% Tableau. 4%, 96% of searches done for Tableau compared, out of your Tableau and Power BI searches, it appears. Wow, very interesting. And then nearby in Spain, 77% of searches are done for Power BI. Oh, very interesting. Well, one thing that I've noticed with Google Trends is sometimes, at least I think what I've noticed is these numbers can shift somewhat. They usually don't shift dramatically, but they can shift a little bit over time. You might see an index of 96, and then when you do the same search later, maybe it changes to 94. I think there's some sampling done when they show you these results, and so when you come back and do the same search, don't be surprised if it changes slightly. I'm not positive on that, but I feel like I've seen that. And so sometimes you might do this several times and make sure the trend that you're seeing holds. Usually it's just slight variation. So if you're seeing a big gap, like I wouldn't expect to come back here, refresh this and see, oh, now France is completely different. Now there's a lot more searches for Power BI, but it can change a little bit. All right, let's see here. Anything else interesting we can glean? Well, consider doing this for other tools too. A big one is SAS versus R versus Python. Those are your three advanced analytics tools, kind of looking at what those look like over time. Maybe do that for fun here. R versus Python versus SAS. Okay. Now R is a letter, right? So we don't really get a good feel for this based on this. I'm going to update this to be the United States. I mean, people could, I don't even know, some people searching for the letter R. Doesn't necessarily mean they're looking for R, the programming language, the analytics language. So we will do, maybe this is a good use case for categories here. Let's see if we have kind of like a technology or analytics one here. Probably not. Oh yeah, web stats and analytics, maybe. I don't know. Let's try like a technology, enterprise technology maybe. Okay, interesting. All right, let's relax this. I'm not sure how reliable the categories are. You know, when you're doing a search, you don't necessarily put in a particular category. But what we can do to make this maybe a little more realistic is perhaps instead of just searching for R, we could search for RStudio perhaps, and that would be, but that's more of an IDE where R code is ran, and each of these languages have different IDEs where you can run them. So another approach we could do is R analysis, and if someone's searching for R analysis, they're searching for the R programming language, right? We could search for just R programming language as well, and Python programming language. I think we'd have Python with a big advantage there because Python is that general purpose language that can be used for all kinds of things, building websites, video games, applications, not just analytics and data science. So I'll do R analytics here. Yep. Update that. And then we'll need to do the same thing with Python and SAS too. R analytics. And finally, SAS analytics. Yeah, I feel like this is a better representation. And let's look at the long-term trends here, 2004 to present. So the longer time range you use here, generally it aggregates the time periods more. So what we kind of see here, SAS analytics was the most popular, especially early on in our time period. This is 2010. Then R was really ramping up a lot, 2015 or so. It definitely seemed like that was a very user-friendly language. It seemed that a lot of statistical libraries were available there and not necessarily in Python. But look at what's happened with Python. Man, right around, it's been ramping up for a while, you know, ever since probably 2012 before. But right around, this is interesting, right around 2017 was a time, kind of a decision time where the, it looks like maybe SAS was a little bit lower at that point, but you kind of had them all roughly in the same range perhaps, just depending on the month here of search volume. Just make sure. Yep. First for analytics, so around 2017 or so. So, you know, 7 years ago. But what clearly happened, look at this, R and SAS have been declining, and Python has kind of really ramped up. There's, again, these data collection changes that make the graph look kind of odd, but just look at the trends relative to each other. And this is why I would recommend Python. One, it's general purpose. It's more flexible. That's probably why it's become more popular. At least one reason. It can be more computationally efficient sometimes, depending on the algorithm you're looking at. Generally coded out by programmers versus, you know, R is probably more statisticians that are great at statistics. But maybe, and this is just generalization, maybe not always as good at the programming efficiency side. So whatever the reason, clearly Python has become more popular here. So if you are trying to learn an advanced analytics tool today, I would recommend Python. Starting with Python, it's very flexible and it's very popular. It's going to be very relevant to most companies that you go to are going to be using that now. So let's try something else. Instead of analytics, just to validate our findings here, let's search for R data science. I'll also search for Python data science. And finally, we'll search for SAS data science. Okay. This is interesting in general. You kind of see that data science wasn't that popular of a search term really until about 2013 or so. Very interesting. And then it's ramped up a lot since then, of course, just in general, the term data science. And what we see is around, first when data science started being used more often, it was about the same search volume. SAS at that point in 2014 was still less searched for compared to R and Python, and R and Python very tight here. And then Python really pulls away, right? Starting in 2017, again, 6 or 7 years ago. So we're kind of validating that between whether we search for data science or analysis, that starting around 2017, it really pulled away. And just, from a personal perspective, I remember working for a firm and just talking, I think it was around that time or right before, there were a lot of R advocates and there were a lot of Python advocates, and we compared them and it decided which way to go. And at that time, again, you could have gone either way. It was SAS, probably a big reason why SAS is so much lower is it comes with a cost, a significant cost, versus R and Python are open source and free. So it's a lot easier to get started. You don't have that additional cost. So a lot of people have already kind of switched away from SAS at that point. But there's this decision of which one's going to be more popular, R or Python. A lot of people are still using R. A lot of people are still fans. I think RStudio was a really nice interface at the time, and Jupyter Notebook is good too, and a lot of people still use Jupyter Notebooks for their Python IDE, and you can run R code in there as well. But yeah, they were neck and neck, and I think what's happened is Python has really pulled away. Again, more and more algorithms have been coded in Python since that 2016, 2017 time period. And being a general purpose language, having other functionality, building websites, applications, and video games in there as well, it just kind of makes sense to learn Python at this point. There's a lot of great training out there on both, but it's been interesting. One of the ways that I learned a lot about data science in particular, it was recommended to me by a colleague, was the Introduction to Statistical Learning. And originally, when I went through that, I had already kind of committed to learning. I'd been a big advocate for R for a couple of years, and then eventually realized, a lot of my team was using Python. Well, maybe I should be learning Python. Just hearing more and more about it. And so I'd already kind of started to learn Python and decided I wanted to do my machine learning and data science in Python. But there was this book that was recommended to me, and it was originally done in R. And so all the examples were done in R. But it still had great explanations of machine learning and data science concepts. So I went through it. I didn't really bother to do the exercise in R because I was pretty committed to doing everything in Python going forward. But now they actually have a Python version. So I'd highly recommend this. It is the Introduction to Statistical Learning. Just do a quick search here. Here it is. It's written by some Stanford professors. And now you've got the ISL with R and the ISL with Python. Now, I think they have a fundamentals of statistical learning or something like that that covers, it's much more math heavy. So if you're a math major and you really want to get into proofs behind the algorithms, that's probably the version for you. For the rest of us that prefer a very approachable, still mentions math a few times, which is good. The purpose of this is really to get deep with data science. It's not a surface level understanding. If you want that, this is probably not the book for you. But if you want to go pretty deep, have a pretty deep understanding of what's going on in the algorithms without getting too much in the math, just enough in the math to have a pretty good understanding of what's happening, but not necessarily just doing a lot of proofs, boy, this is the book for you. And it's a free PDF. And again, now they have a Python version that has Python examples that you can follow along with, and I highly recommend that. Again, my journey when I read this, I wasn't interested in R, so I didn't do the examples, but I would recommend doing the examples here if you're going to learn Python. So definitely consider checking that out. Let's see, something's happened in my browser here. Just checking to make sure we're still live. We are live now. All right. Again, if you have questions, please leave them in the chat. I'd love to answer them. Just checking to make sure we're still live here. I would love to answer your question today. Anything, career advice, technical advice, whatever you need, here to answer your questions. Just checking where we are here on my phone to make sure we're still live. And it looks like we are. Very good. Please ask your questions. And if you don't have any, again, I do have a prepared topic for today, so we'll move on to that if you really don't have any. But I'm here for you, so I'll keep an eye out for your questions and happy to switch to those. Okay. Well, I've got my website up, Value Driven Analytics here, and there's so much you can learn here. If you haven't been here before, check out the training tab, our Introduction to Data Analytics series. Go through lots of popular platforms and techniques with some engaging examples. We've got some college football, some weather, some stock market examples that we use throughout these trainings, so you can learn a technique and also see application to some pretty engaging use cases. Again, you can use analytics a lot in your personal life, but we've also got soft skill training, and these are the things that are really going to differentiate you from other analysts. A lot of analysts get very good at the technical side, which is important. It's important for your efficiency, for the rigor of your analysis, but we don't always focus as much on the communication or the leadership or the project management. And so when you think about analysts in generalization, if you can learn those skills and do well in those, you're going to stand out. So I highly recommend that. If you're an analytics leader, if you lead a team, or maybe you're an executive where analytics reports up into you, have a lot of advice around just taking your analytics team to the next level, and also how you set up your analytics team from an org structure perspective. I've been a part of a lot of analytics teams across industries and firms, and I just recommend what I've seen work the best if you're interested. And if you need a good laugh, I'll do my best with the analytics comedy here. I have a few videos on that. I think that's a unique space to be in, analytics comedy. I've been seeing more and more analytics comedians. There's a lot of potential for laughs there. But anyway, what I really wanted to cover today is the analytics maturity transformation. And I think this could add a lot of value. So I've made this the call to action right when you go to the website. Take the analytics maturity transformation assessment. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to click learn more here, and it's going to take us to our analytics transformation assessment page. So as I mentioned earlier, if you take this, it'll probably take you about 10 minutes. There's about 34 questions here, just simple answers, 3 answers to choose from. Just take it, and if you don't know the answer, you can just skip the question, and the quiz will still work. But the idea here is you take the quiz, within a few days, you get a PDF that highlights your level of analytics maturity at your firm on a scale of 1 to 3. It's simple. So it could be 1, 2, or 3, or anywhere between, including decimals here. And it'll break it out by category. So, for instance, the first category in our quiz asks you a few questions related to your analytics strategy and analyst performance at your organization. Some pretty high-level questions. So when you get this report back, this PDF report, it's going to have this score broken out for this particular category and the other categories that we ask about on this quiz as well. So it kind of lets you know where you're doing well and where your organization could improve the most. And then we ultimately give you recommendations on how to improve as well, very specific recommendations. So if you want to know where your firm stands, and if you want to try to improve it and take it to the next level yourself, which you absolutely can do, and we've got a lot of videos on our YouTube channel to help you in each of these areas, this is a great place to start. And then even if you take the quiz and you're not sure where to go next, consider reaching out to us, and we'd love to help you. We've got a 7-step roadmap. We've got an ebook where we tell you exactly how we would approach analytics transformation. Again, you can do that yourself, or you can partner with us. The benefit of partnering with us is one of the things we call out in the 7-step roadmap is we've got 7 steps that really are going to give you some structure on how to take your firm from one level of analytics maturity to the next. And what we mean by that is, maybe you're doing a lot of Excel manual analysis today, manual reporting, spreadsheet reporting, and you want to transition. You never get to those proactive advanced analytics. Management's always complaining, well, why do we never get the advanced analytics or data science that so many other firms are doing? And you're saying, well, so many asks that we get, and everything's manual. When I talk about analytics maturity transformation, I'm talking about taking that reporting and turning it into interactive automated dashboards so you're no longer updating anything manually. Management can drill into the trends right away on their own. They don't need, so now it's not taking up more of the analyst time. The updates aren't taking more analyst time because they're automated. Management has real-time access to data. It's not like, oh, I got to wait for my weekly report to see what happened. No, it's being updated every day or even more frequently if you need it to. And so they always have access to the latest information. There's no slowdown in decision making. But perhaps the biggest benefit of analytics transformation is now that you've automated that and reduced the number of manual investigations that an analyst needs to do because stakeholders can drill into the data directly in a platform like Power BI or Tableau, the analyst team has so much more time now. They finally have the time to learn and apply advanced analytics tools, data science techniques, just proactive analysis to help turn the analytics team from a support function, which is a lot of times the way an organization sees it. And perhaps that's not right, but perhaps that's how the analytics team has seen themselves in the past, a support function. Just, hey, you need a report, I'll provide it to you, here you go. To more proactive analysis that moves the business forward, that actually drives sales. We did this analysis, or we built this model that is going to make your sales team twice as productive because we're showing you the customers that are most likely to buy. Doing that type of analysis now, if you do that well enough and frequently enough, management's going to start thinking about analytics as a sales driving team, and they're going to invest more in it because it's more productive. So the benefit of partnering with us is you get the experience. When you lead an analytics transformation, walking through that 7-step process that we recommend, it's very helpful to have a broad knowledge of analytics across industries, across firms, across tools, because the second step in the process is selecting the right tools. And if you're just familiar with certain tools or just doing some high-level research online where everyone's marketing their tool, you might end up picking some tools that aren't the best. Maybe they're too expensive, or maybe they're inefficient in various ways. So it's very helpful in all the steps to have an analytics expert. And someone with experience and change management skills as well. And we believe we've come up with a roadmap that it's unique. It's not just a top-down initiative. So many times when there's a new initiative at a company, it starts at the executive level. This is what we're doing. Get on board. You don't have a choice. Get on board or move on to another organization, right? And that's just the way it is a lot of times. But I think there's a better way. The idea behind the way we approach analytics transformation is starting with creating a desire within analysts to change. Think about it from an analyst perspective who's been using Excel, manually updating things for a while. There's probably a few reasons not to change. One, I've been doing this for a while. Why do I need to change? Management gets their numbers, right? Not thinking about the opportunity cost of all the other things they could be doing as well. And then, hey, I'm not sure how to change, right? I haven't done this before. And so there might be a little bit of fear there that I'm not going to be able to learn to code. Maybe they've had a bad experience in the past. I certainly did. I was afraid of coding at first after trying to learn C and some of those lower level languages early on in high school, not doing so great. When I heard about coding and SQL and SAS is where I started, I was a little afraid that I wasn't going to be able to learn it, that it was going to be like it was when I tried to learn those lower level languages. Fortunately, they're much higher level, but there's a lot of fear there around especially learning code for analysts. But man, when you take the plunge, you'll find so much value in terms of efficiency and flexibility. Now it's no longer, this point and click tool that I was using, it doesn't have that capability, so I guess we can't do this analysis. With coding, especially with general purpose language like Python, if you can dream it, you can perform that analysis. There's so much flexibility there. So our approach is to conduct some data science models, build some interactive dashboards, conduct some analyses, put in place some automated data processes like customer data integration, and we've got some systems around automated validation, and also just a process that makes building new tables much more quicker to develop and schedule. So putting those things in place ourselves is where we start, and what that does is it showcases the benefit of those tools for other analysts who maybe don't have as much exposure to those, and so they start saying, "Wow, that's cool! You can drill into that, and you don't have to refresh that every week. That's amazing." They think about the benefit from a work-life balance for them, from just a capabilities perspective of what they could do for the company that in turn generally relates to more promotion in the future. And so it creates a desire to learn these skills. Wow, I've heard about those things, but now I've seen the benefits that it can have. So most analysts, when they see those benefits, are going to want to learn. And then the next step is, how do I learn? So we start with some training. And again, that's where the analytics expertise comes in. We lead all kinds of trainings on these advanced platforms that we've aligned on, implementing in one of the first steps, the second step in the 7-step process of analytics maturity transformation. We teach them, but then, oh boy, again, the fear sets in. Okay, I've learned this, but I'm running into errors, or I don't even know where to start with implementing this. I've got a project, I don't even know where to start with conducting this in Power BI or Python or SQL. And that's where the ongoing development initiatives come in. That's where the weekly office hours, or more frequently, depending on what your organization needs, I can just drop in every Friday. That's what this is, right? You can drop in and ask your questions. So if you do have a question, leave it in the chat, and we're going to skip right to that. Or we'll just keep talking about analytics transformation if you don't. But that's where those weekly office hours comes in. Maybe we even set it up where it's multiple times per week, so that when you run into a problem, you can get help. You're not left alone. But also some other examples of ongoing development initiatives that we help to implement and lead for a few months, and eventually transition to someone on your team so that it can go on beyond the consulting engagement. Analysis meetings. Get your analysts together. Sometimes analysts are very siloed. The finance team does their thing, and then the marketing team is doing something else, and then the sales team is doing something else. get them together and share information with each other. Share what you're working on, what tools you've learned about, what techniques you've learned about. And there is so much value to that. That's one of the best ways to develop your analytical rigor, is seeing what other analysts are doing. And then an analyst on the finance team perhaps sees what an analyst on the sales team, how they approached a particular project, and maybe they get a similar project in the future, or a not similar project, but they remember, hey, you know what? I could probably take that technique that sales analyst shared in the analysis meeting and apply it to this scenario. Oh boy. One-on-one mentorship programs, one-day solutions where you get everybody together and say, here's a big problem the business is facing. Let's get together and work on this together. We're going to divide and conquer. We're going to work together as a team. That's a great team building activity, but also a great way to get a minimum viable product for a business problem done quickly. So highly recommend doing a hackathon or a one-day solution. But that's the value we provide, is the analytics expertise, leading the trainings, helping you pick out the right platforms, doing those first projects that are going to showcase the value of data science and interactive dashboards analyses, but then also the training and the ongoing development initiatives, putting those in place, and the change management. Again, we've got a process that we think works really well. It's not a top-down directive. It's a, wow, now I want to learn these new tools. And wow, now I have the real skills and the support to use them. That's our process. So we'd love to help you with that. Analytics transformation assessment. Okay, the first question is, how are business strategy decisions typically made? How do you make decisions about which marketing programs to pursue, which sales teams to invest in, all kinds of business decisions? How do you do that? So historically, before analytics came along, it was typically based on decision makers. We'll call it gut instinct, right? What do I think makes sense? But really, probably where that gut instinct comes from is their past experience. Maybe at other firms this has worked, or in other areas this has worked, or hey, I'm just logically thinking about it and it seems like this one is best. Or if I put myself in the position of a consumer, this is the option that I would want. So they're just whatever method they're getting to, it's based on what they think. Maybe hopefully there's a group of decision makers and they're talking about it, and it's kind of like the consensus that now a group thinks, which is maybe a little better than one individual making the decision. But still, you've only got a limited number of data points either way. Now, as data analytics has come about and data science, more and more stakeholders know that they need to bring data. Almost every organization says they want to make data-driven decisions. Now, what I've seen happen too often is every stakeholder knows they need to bring some data these days because they know management wants to make a data-driven decision. They know they're probably going to be in trouble if they just bring something and say, here's what I think we should do, let's do it. Probably be, well, have you done any market research? Have you looked into any data around this? What does the data suggest? So they know that, and they're going to do at least a little bit of research. Oh boy, we got a question. I'll answer that here. And so they'll bring data, but it's not necessarily in a robust way. So what we recommend doing is ultimately A/B testing, or a very robust analysis where you truly test something, see which one does best, and then you pursue that option. So we'll come back to this. But Alejandro, thank you for your question. What is the difference between business analyst and data analyst roles? What a great question. I've been confused by that myself when I've looked for a job in the past. It's very confusing. Business analyst, data analyst, and in some context, it really can mean the same thing. I have a whole video on this. If you look at the first part of the introduction, business intelligence, sure. Business analyst usually is someone who's kind of taking requirements and then turning them into technical requirements for the team. So they're not necessarily conducting the analysis. So it's just business analyst, that's what that is, and then data analyst, that's the one who's really getting in and writing the SQL, the Python, the Power BI, and so forth. Business intelligence and data analytics. Yeah. Now those I would say, again, some people are going to look at those and think that they're synonyms. It's kind of like machine learning and AI and data science. Some people just use those as synonyms, and some people do think about them differently. And so I can provide some context around that. But business intelligence versus data analytics, I think where I've seen the difference made, again, some people are going to see them as the same. Business intelligence, I think about setting up databases and reporting, especially interactive dashboarding, hopefully, like in Power BI and Tableau. So if you have a reporting team that their job is to create interactive dashboards in Power BI or Tableau or another interactive platform, a lot of times they'll be called the business intelligence team. I've even seen the team that creates your data warehouse, that creates the SQL database, be called the business intelligence team. So it's, in general, more focused on the data, just the raw data, or pretty raw, a pretty raw stage. Maybe they've done some transformations, but getting that data to management in a reporting platform. Versus when I think about data analytics, it's almost that next stage of, okay, now we've got the data in a database. Let's get that and let's turn it into an insight and ultimately a recommended action for the firm. So the data analysts are the ones that they're going to management. Maybe they've been using a business intelligence report in Power BI and Tableau, but now they're coming back and saying, okay, we're seeing sales are down. Data analysts, can you figure out what's driving that? Can you make some recommendations on what we need to do to turn sales around? They're going to the data analyst. That's data analytics that's doing that process of diving into the data. Maybe they're filtering down on different things to figure out what's driving that. Ideally, even doing that in an automated way where they're writing some code that automatically flags which areas are doing the best or the worst. Yeah, so that's the that's generally, if someone is making a differentiation there, that's the difference between business intelligence first step and then data analytics, really finding insights and making recommendations based on that. All right. Great questions here, Alejandro. Thank you. Okay, my company outsources data analyst and the only role they hire in-house is business intelligence. Should I change my focus to more data intelligence instead of data analytics? So like business intelligence instead of data analytics. Okay. Yeah, great question. So now we're getting into more of a career question. I like it. Well, let me start. Are you what role are you in today, Alejandro? Are you in a business or data analytics role or a business intelligence role today? And that'll kind of provide some clarification. Currently let's see, I'm having trouble seeing that. A desk. I'm just going to click this. So oh man, sorry, I'm having trouble seeing part of it. So you're currently a decision analyst, is that right? I'm gonna look at this on my desk side analyst. Okay, I'm not familiar with that term. Desk side analyst. Is that kind of like an IT analyst? Help desk, tier 2. Got it. Okay, so escalated problems and you troubleshoot. That's awesome. I've seen a lot of IT people that want to go into data analytics, and I can understand why. I've got a whole, again, that same video, the first video in the introduction to data analytics training series we have. It's just an overview of the analytics landscape. I cover all of these things, difference between roles, and also some reasons you'd want to become a business analyst. And that's what I would come back to is, what are you interested in? And maybe you don't know yet because you haven't really explored these. one way to figure that out is to go through some trainings. And again, I'd recommend the Introduction to Statistical Learning training series. I'll try to drop the link here. So you can go through those videos and figure out what kind of resonates with you. I want to make the jump to data analytics, but don't see that specific path. Ah, gotcha. Okay. Well, there's a few considerations. One, you have an in at your current company, and especially if you have a good reputation in your current role, you've performed well, they're going to want to keep you there. And so you've got an in there. They know your reputation at your current company. There may be other reasons to stay, your colleagues or other considerations. You just really like the company. And so if you want to stay at that company, yeah, you do want to consider what kind of roles are available in the short run. On the other hand, if you really said, no, I really want data analytics, you could look elsewhere, of course, but that's a tough thing to do. So if you're committed to staying at your current company, I would say the path that I would recommend is, yes, apply for those business intelligence roles. I would reach out to someone on that team and ask them what business intelligence means there, because again, it can mean different things. It sounds like it's like, as you mentioned, data analytics is outsourced currently, but you can change that, and we'll talk about that. So they're probably doing SQL database creation, maybe some high-level reporting. My only other big issues is domain knowledge. This is technically my first healthcare role, so my domain knowledge is bare. Yeah. Okay. A lot in Power BI. So do you have experience in Power BI today? Have you used Power BI in the past? Great. That's awesome. Now, is the business intelligence team, the team that has these roles that you're considering, do they use Power BI today, or do they use Tableau, or are they still in Excel? Or do you know? This is a good conversation. Excel and Power BI. Okay, well, yeah, if they're using reporting in Excel, there could be a big opportunity to transition that to Power BI. There might be a few, maybe 5% or less of reporting that makes sense to keep in Power BI. Maybe it has a lot of cells that when you update it, it's like a financial model and the rest of it updates. But most things probably should be in Power BI. So that could be one way that you could help them in a pitch you could make if you do apply to those roles. Of, hey, I've done a lot of Power BI on my personal side. You might create a website or just show them what you've done on the personal side to show them that you know Power BI. I'd like to help you get more reporting there. We're just going to automate more things, give management access to real-time information, allow them to drill into it, make your reporting better in all kinds of ways, and create so much more time for the team so they're not manually updating those Excel reports. So that would be my pitch to get on the business intelligence team. That is awesome that you have Power BI skills. They're using Power BI. What a great match. Does the minimum domain knowledge in healthcare hurt me with applying? Well, you're in a help desk role, right? And hopefully you're doing well in that role. Again, a lot of times companies want you to at least be meeting the standards in your current role in order to be considered for another role. So if you can do that's one thing. If you're doing well currently and you have minimum healthcare knowledge, it's maybe going to be similar from an analyst role or a business intelligence role. You might just need a little bit more domain knowledge, but here's the thing, you quickly gain that. One of the cool things about analytics is that it can be applied to any platform, to any industry, right? So I personally have been in a variety of industries in the past. The automotive industry, the energy industry, medical device, and technology. And guess what? The techniques, the platforms that we used in one were used in another. So that's one of the cool things about analytics is it gives you the potential for a varied career if you want to learn about another industry without starting over. But what that means in your scenario, if I can go and be successful in a completely different industry somewhat quickly, that means that I was able to learn enough domain knowledge there to be effective as an analyst. So I don't think you need to have a very, very, very deep level of understanding of the healthcare industry in order to have an impact. If you have an analytical thought process, you'll ask the right questions, you'll learn more about that domain to the extent that you need to do effective analytics for healthcare. Now, learning more about the business can trigger more and more ideas of how you can apply analytics and how to set up reporting for your stakeholders. You want to, if you're on the business intelligence side and you're setting up the Power BI reporting, you want to interview your stakeholders and figure out what they're using the reporting for, and then design the reporting around that. That's what a good business intelligence analyst does. But you don't let the healthcare knowledge prevent you from doing that, because every stakeholder is going to be different, and you'll quickly learn what you need to know about the healthcare industry in order to be an effective analyst. Just ask good questions. Ask them, what are you going to be using this for? And then tailor your dashboard to that, just like you have with your personal projects. You don't just create dashboards on a data set for no reason. You have a purpose in mind for those personal projects, and you tailor your Power BI dashboard to that. You do the same thing with your stakeholders. So would you say that the business intelligence role is the first step into a data analytics role, either here at my current company or another company? It doesn't necessarily have to be, but that's a great next step for you. I mean, if you're going to go straight into a data analytics role, then you need to start doing, if you're not already, some data analytics type work in your personal life. Maybe you start to do some analysis on a stock portfolio, or more than just visualization, if that's what you've done so far in Power BI from a personal perspective. Maybe you've already done some data analytics, and if you have and you feel really good about your data analytics skills, maybe you do go straight for a role. And if you want to stay at your current company, it's going to be an uphill battle because they don't even hire those in-house. You got to give them a reason to go with you, and a low risk reason. So again, let's say you want to stay at your current company. Yeah, absolutely. The role that's already available there, go into business intelligence. And so here's like kind of a path that I've taken that's been really effective, and I think it applies to your scenario as well. You want to become a data analyst first, and eventually you might want to become a data scientist and build models, and eventually you might want to be a leader, a manager of teams, or an executive. Okay, so regardless of what stage you're at business intelligence and you want to become a data analyst right now. You go into that role, you learn as much as possible, you try to make things as efficient as possible, and it sounds like there's an opportunity if they're still using Excel. Get that Excel migrated to Power BI, do everything as efficient as possible. I've got a video on efficiency techniques. Try to be able to do the work that you're doing in half the time, 20 hours a week. See if you can get that efficient. And then take that extra time, and in your case, use that time. You're going to have access, and you're going to know the data sets very well. You might be building those data sets in the business intelligence role. Start performing actionable, insightful analysis on it, and bring it to your manager, bring it to other stakeholders in sales and marketing, and say, hey, I know you've been having these problems with sales or with marketing. I created this analysis, maybe even eventually model builds. And we've got training on all of those things on our channel. And I just wanted to share this with you to, and this is what I'm finding. I think, make it actionable. Here's what actions this would suggest. And if you do that well enough and frequently enough, they're going to start saying, wait a minute, Alejandro is giving us some really good insights and recommended actions. Why are we paying another firm to do this? Why don't we just have Alejandro focus on this full time? We've got other people on the business intelligence team that maybe are just, they do what they're asked to do. They're creating data sets, they're creating Power BI dashboards, but Alejandro is the one who's really getting us these actionable insights. And I've seen this a lot of times. We're trying to be different as value-driven analytics, trying to be a little more affordable. Analytics consulting firms outsourcing that can be quite expensive. I mean, there's different ways of outsourcing it. So they might be going with a contracting agency and maybe an offshore one, and maybe it's not as expensive. But most likely, if they're outsourcing data analytics, they're using a consulting firm, they're probably paying a lot of money for that, a lot of money. And it would be probably a lot less expensive to have someone in-house do that. And if you can show that you've got those skills and do that well, especially in a business intelligence role, again, first step, go in, be as efficient as possible, try to get your job and your requests done to 50% of your time, 20 hours a week, take the extra 20 hours and pursue proactive analysis. You're not waiting for stakeholders to ask you to do data analysis, because they're not. They're just going to go to the data analyst or the consulting firm that they're outsourcing it to. You've got to proactively pursue these things and important questions and do a good job in finding insightful analysis, communicating that in a good way, giving them the recommended actions. You've got to do that with excellence, do it consistently, share eventually, especially after you've done that several times, maybe 6 months in, 12 months in, and you feel like you've shown and that they're seeing value on what you're doing from a data analytics perspective. Share your desire of, I'm really passionate about this. I'd love to be able to do this full time. You think there could be a possibility of doing this full time? And if you've been doing a good job, they're going to want to keep you there, and they're going to want to keep getting those good data analytics insights that you've been giving. And eventually if they're smart, they'll probably start giving you more of that work instead of the outsourced form. So that would be the path I would recommend. And what I was talking about earlier is maybe you do that with data analytics, and then you decide, well, I really want to do data science work. And so then you get your data analytics work. You get really efficient with that, creating reusable assets. Again, we've got an efficiency video on our website, on our YouTube channel. So check that out, of how you can get your work down to 20 hours a week. And now you're proactively building data science models. And then, and maybe you don't go down that route, or you just want to go straight into management from there. Either way, you get your work done within 20 hours a week. And maybe if you want to become a leader at that point, you start proactively identifying and pursuing leadership initiatives. And if you do that enough and you do it well enough, now people, when a leadership role comes open, they're going to think of you. And if you want to become a leader, share that with your manager too, and say, I would love to have the opportunity to develop someone else. I've learned all these data analytics skills, and you've told me I'm doing a pretty good job with that. Is there an opportunity to get some experience mentoring somebody and teaching them those skills and helping them develop in that way? And if there is, and you do a good job with that, again, you're building a brand of leadership that, with that extra time that you've created by being extra efficient. And eventually, when leadership opportunities, sometimes it takes some time for them to open up, but they'll want to keep you if you're doing a really good job, and they'll try to find that opportunity for you. Alejandro, thank you for your insight. I really appreciate it. I like getting my hands dirty. I've been around long enough to know I'm better in a support role. Than decision maker. Okay. So you're not necessarily interested in leadership then. That's okay. It's not for everybody. In fact, I've seen some videos where people talk about their experience going into leadership and how they realized it just wasn't for them. Especially at a lot of tech companies, maybe in healthcare as well, especially tech companies though, they really rely a lot on their technical heavy hitters, the ones that are doing really advanced things. You might get a title of principal analyst or principal data scientist, meaning like you're a leader in the industry, and that's a way to grow from a leadership, from a compensation perspective as well, without having direct reports per se. So that could be a route that you go down to as you build your analytics and data science capabilities. Some organizations will even have director level individual contributor roles because it's that important and they're that good at what they do. So you can always go down that individual contributor role and grow a lot in that way too. Me, I am passionate about developing people. I love developing people. In fact, I like analytics a lot. Hopefully you can tell. But as I had the opportunity to develop people, I find that I'm even more passionate about that. So being a leader in the analytics space is a good balance of both of those things. Data analytics is the end goal. I really see that being the position I was to be in for the rest of my career. Awesome. Okay. Well, just so I make sure I provide you the right guidance, Alejandro. Maybe this is something sensitive you don't want to share. Again, if you want to stay at your company, that is the route I would recommend. I would probably recommend, again, you've already created hopefully some good credibility there. If you do have a good reputation there, absolutely. Go into that business intelligence role, be efficient, start proactively pursuing data analytics, and show your manager and your stakeholders why they should be having you focus 100% of your time on data analytics instead of outsourcing it. That would be my recommendation for you. And if you were to go external, try to look for a role, you really need to kind of build up your personal projects as it relates to data analytics. Consider creating a website, tailoring your resume toward that with all your personal projects, because that's what you have to go by, right? Especially if you don't have a lot of data analytics experience in the past. And maybe even if you were to pursue an external role, maybe this business intelligence role at least gives you some experience that, again, some people almost think about business intelligence and data analytics as synonyms. So at least it gives you a background that they're going to say, yeah, business intelligence, you've got some experience working with data, building dashboards. That's a good foundation for data analytics. So either way, it sounds like maybe pursuing that business intelligence role at your current company is perhaps a good first step. Yeah. Well, any other questions for today? I know we didn't get too far into this, but we'll plan on going through the analytics transformation assessment more in a future session. Again, if we have time. Alejandro, I really, really appreciate the questions today. Very good questions, and I hope they're helpful for you. I'm definitely rooting for you in your career. If you want to have more personal advice, consider booking a 1-hour consultation with me on the website and anyone else. And I'll just also mention that actually, if you go through, and I would highly recommend this for you, Alejandro, if you haven't already, there is an introduction. Let me see just a second here. I'll go ahead and put some links in the chat here. There is an introduction to statistical, or I walked through the introduction to statistical learning resource earlier, but there is a playlist, the definitive guide to data analytics, that walks through a lot of the skills, almost all the skills, and it kind of covers some of the benefits we've been talking about of being an analyst and the difference between roles, what a career path could look like. You've got to go through this series. It will be so helpful. And I mentioned the 1-hour consultation. If you want to go through that just at any time, you can. And that's a great resource when you get into either a business intelligence or data analytics role. You've been trying to troubleshoot something for hours, maybe even days. Book a 1-hour consultation with me, and I can, within an hour or less, usually help provide some advice or help you troubleshoot through that. Now, that is $250 an hour, so it's only to be used if you've been working on something for a long time and you haven't figured it out, right? That's probably where it makes sense. But here's the thing. If you go through the Definitive Guide to Data Analytics training series, 7 training videos, you're going to learn so many analytics skills through it. If you go through all of those, all the way through, it's about just over 20 hours, and you'll learn so much through that. Fun, hands-on examples. You can actually reach out to me and book a 1-hour consultation, one-on-one with me. My email's in there, Brian Amrine at Value Driven Analytics. Once you've watched all of those, reach out. We'll talk about what you've learned. We'll talk about more personalized career advice for you. We'll get on a call so I can actually see you and talk with you one-on-one. So that's a way to get that 1-hour consultation for career advice for free, is just to go through the series. Again, it's an investment of time, but you will learn so much through that. So let me go ahead and send the link in the chat. I really, really think this will be helpful for you. There's even some advice on how to create your resume and how to get your first analytics role as well. That could be some good follow-ups as you think about that business intelligence role that you're looking at applying. So let me put the link here in the chat. There we go. Yeah, please check that out. Of course. Alejandro, thank you for joining today. This was, we did office hours on Thursday today. We had to reschedule it, but next Friday and going forward, every Friday, 10 Eastern. Please join us, and we'd love to talk more as you go through these trainings and you have questions or any kind of technical questions or career advice or project advice you want. This is a good conversation today. Just join, and I'd love to provide some advice. I've been doing this for 13 years, and I want to give back. I want to share some lessons and some insights with you around tools and techniques and career advice that would have been nice to know, 13 years ago. I probably could have done even better, but I've had a good career, and I recently started my own analytics consulting firm, and so it's been good. Sometimes it's nice to learn things yourself as well. But why learn the hard way if you don't have to? All right, that's all for today. It's been awesome to get to talk with you, especially Alejandro, and I hope others are able to watch and get a lot out of this, get a lot out of just hearing about your career journey, Alejandro, and some of the other things we talked about around interactive dashboarding and analytics maturity transformation earlier on as well. Hopefully we'll see you next Friday again. Talk to you later. Have a good day.